People like you don't have this kind of money, sneers the teller, theatrically shredding the black woman's $50,000 check while security stands ready. Vanessa Johnson's expression remains stone still despite the burning humiliation. Richard Klein, the bank supervisor with shark-like eyes, deliberately tears her legitimate check into pieces, letting them scatter across the counter. "We protect this institution from obvious fraud," he announces, voice carrying through the marble lobby. Customers freeze. A mother pulls her child closer. No one intervenes. Through the bank's glass facade, workers unveil an enormous billboard directly across the street. Anthony Johnson, NBA superstar and Vanessa's son, smiles confidently beside the slogan, "Heartland Financial, where everyone belongs." Richard doesn't notice. He's too busy destroying the banking credentials of the woman who chairs the bank's National Diversity Board. Little does Richard know, his career just ended, with witnesses all around. Vanessa steps through Heartland Financial's revolving doors, her casual business attire a departure from her usual executive wardrobe. She's taking a rare personal day. No power suit, no executive assistant, just a simple errand at the downtown branch. The bank's interior gleams with marble and mahogany, carefully crafted to project stability and wealth. Vanessa notes the customer patterns with practiced precision. White clients receiving prompt attention while the few people of color wait noticeably longer. Her corporate training and demographic metrics makes these disparities impossible to miss. Richard Klein commands the floor from his supervisor station. Mid-30s with impeccable grooming and an artificial smile that never reaches his eyes, he directs his staff with sharp gestures and barely concealed impatience. When an elderly black man approaches with questions about a form, Richard sighs audibly before delegating the task to the newest teller. "Let's not hold up the line for complicated issues," Richard says, loud enough for others to hear. The elderly man shuffles away, embarrassment evident in his hunched shoulders. Vanessa joins the designated line for check deposits. Despite 3 open teller windows, she waits 20 minutes while white customers who arrived after her are called forward. She observes without comment, mentally documenting each instance. When she finally reaches the front, Richard intercepts her from his desk. "I'll handle this personally," he announces, guiding her to his station with a proprietary hand gesture that stops short of touching her. His eyes perform a quick assessment, lingering on her simple blouse and slacks, making calculations and assumptions. The $50,000 check in Vanessa's hand represents payment for a financial literacy workshop she conducted in underserved neighborhoods, ironically funded by Heartland Financial's own community outreach program. Richard takes the check between 2 fingers as if touching something distasteful. "This is an unusual amount," he says, scrutinizing it with theatrical precision. Near the entrance, maintenance workers carefully remove protective covering from a new window display. A marketing team hovers nearby, checking their watches repeatedly, clearly waiting for something. Richard, focused on Vanessa's transaction, pays them no attention. As Richard holds her check to the light with exaggerated suspicion, Vanessa notices his name tag and silently commits it to memory. "This is quite a large sum for a personal check," Richard emphasizes, infusing the word personal with unmistakable doubt. His fingernails tap against the counter in a rhythm suggesting impatience disguised as thoroughness. "It's a business payment," Vanessa explains calmly, sliding her ID and business card across the counter. "For consulting services." Richard barely glances at her credentials, instead flipping the check over repeatedly as if expecting to find contraband hidden within its fibers. At the adjacent window, a white businessman in an off-the-rack suit deposits a similar amount without question or delay. "We have strict protocols for unusual transactions," Richard states, though no such protocol appears to apply to the businessman completing his transaction with a friendly chat about golf scores. "I notice the gentleman beside me is depositing a similar amount without these questions," Vanessa observes, her tone professional but pointed. Richard's posture stiffens. "Every situation is different," he says dismissively, making a small gesture toward Jennifer, a younger teller. She approaches, and Richard whispers something that causes her eyes to widen slightly as she looks at Vanessa. In Richard's mind, he's performing an essential security function. He genuinely believes Vanessa couldn't legitimately possess this money. His biases run so deep that they feel like objective assessment to him, a perception of risk so normalized it appears as simple fact rather than prejudice. "I'd like to speak with the branch manager," Vanessa requests, maintaining her composure. Richard's lips curl into a satisfied smile. "The manager is on vacation this week. I'm acting supervisor." The authority in his voice swells visibly. "We'll need to call the issuer of this check and verify its authenticity. That could take several days." "The check is issued by Heartland Financial's corporate division," Vanessa points out. "This very bank." Richard's rhythm falters momentarily before he recovers. Even internal checks require verification when the amount seems... He pauses deliberately. "Unusual for the account holder." The confrontation draws attention. Some customers look uncomfortable. Others pretend absorption in their phones. A few watch with disturbing entertainment value. Theater playing out in a bank lobby on an otherwise ordinary day. As tension builds, Vanessa's phone buzzes with a text. "Mom, the billboard just went up. Did they surprise you at the branch yet?" Richard escalates the situation with deliberate calculation. "Perhaps, ma'am, you don't fully understand what this document represents," he says, speaking with exaggerated slowness despite Vanessa's articulate responses. His voice carries across the hushed lobby. Heads turn, conversations pause. "This appears to be a company check, not a government assistance form." The implication hangs in the air, precise and poisonous. A woman in line winces at the thinly veiled accusation. "This is a legitimate business check for services rendered," Vanessa states, her dignity intact despite the mounting pressure. "I've been a customer of this bank for 15 years. Richard makes a show of typing her information into his terminal, angling the screen so that she cannot see it, but ensuring his theatrical reactions are visible to the growing audience of waiting customers. "Ah, I see your account typically maintains a much lower balance," he announces. His voice carries unnecessarily far, a serious breach of privacy protocol. "This deposit is unusual given your history with us." Jennifer, the younger teller, shifts uncomfortably behind her station. Her eyes dart between Richard and Vanessa, recognizing the impropriety but remaining silent. She suddenly becomes intensely focused on reorganizing her cash drawer. Richard picks up the check again, holding it to the light with dramatic flair. His eyes narrow in manufactured concern. "The signature doesn't appear to match our records," he declares, though he has made no actual verification call. His decision has been made from the moment Vanessa approached his counter. Then, with deliberate showmanship, Richard performs the unthinkable. He places his fingers at the edge of the check and tears it cleanly in half. The ripping sound cuts through the lobby's ambient noise like a gunshot. He doesn't stop there, folding and tearing again until the check lies in quarters on the counter between them. "I'm sorry, but I cannot accept this. It appears fraudulent." His voice rings with bureaucratic finality. Gasps ripple through the line behind Vanessa. Someone whispers, "Can he even do that?" Another murmurs, "Is that legal?" Richard's satisfaction blooms across his face. "You're welcome to contact the issuer for a replacement check with proper documentation next time." He pushes the torn pieces toward Vanessa with the tip of one finger, as if avoiding contamination. Vanessa's composure remains remarkable. Her hands do not tremble as she collects the fragments of the destroyed check. Richard watches expectantly, clearly anticipating an emotional outburst that would further justify his actions in the eyes of onlookers. Instead, she asks with perfect calm, "May I have a copy of your refusal documentation and the specific reason for destroying a financial instrument without proper verification?" Richard's smile falters slightly at her composed, knowledgeable response. "People who don't understand banking protocols don't ask for refusal documentation. We don't provide documentation for rejected fraudulent items," he invents, painting himself into a procedural corner. As Vanessa carefully places the torn check into her purse, a bank employee bursts through the street entrance, breathless with excitement. "The new billboard is up! Everyone come see!" Vanessa steps away from Richard's counter, allowing other customers to be served while she retreats to a quiet corner of the bank's lobby. Through the glass facade, she glimpses the edge of the massive billboard being unveiled across the street, her son Anthony's confident smile emerging as workers remove the final covering. He stands tall in his basketball uniform beside Heartland Financial's logo and the slogan, "Building Community Champions." The bitter irony isn't lost on her. While her son's image sells the bank's commitment to diversity, she experiences raw discrimination within its walls. The contrast between appearance and reality couldn't be starker. From her designer purse, Vanessa retrieves not the simple business card case she showed Richard, but a platinum-embossed case bearing Heartland Financial's executive insignia. She withdraws her phone and composes a text to her executive assistant. "Documentation needed. Discrimination incident at downtown branch. Supervisor, Richard Klein, need immediate conference call with legal." Richard watches from his station, misinterpreting her quiet efficiency as distress. His satisfaction radiates in subtle ways, the straighter posture, the self-congratulatory tap of fingers against his desk. In his mind, he successfully identified and prevented fraud, protecting his institution from those who don't belong in its marble halls. He briefly considers having security escort her from the premises, but decides the situation is handled satisfactorily. Vanessa walks toward the entrance, ostensibly to view the billboard. Bank employees cluster at the windows, pointing excitedly at Anthony's towering image. Marketing staff snap photos for social media, their enthusiasm palpable. Richard barely glances up, busy documenting his fraud prevention success in the system. Outside on the sun-warmed steps, Vanessa makes a call, her voice shifting to the precise, authoritative tone she uses in boardrooms. "Diane, I need a full review of downtown branch operations. Today." She pauses, listening. "No, I'm not at headquarters. I'm standing outside the branch right now. Yes, it's that urgent." The conversation continues for exactly 90 seconds, concluding with, "I'll handle the documentation personally." Vanessa ends the call and raises her eyes to her son's smiling face on the billboard. The contrast between his celebrated image and her treatment crystallizes something within her. This isn't merely about a personal slight or individual discrimination. It represents every person who's been prejudged, every qualified applicant denied, every customer treated with suspicion based solely on appearance. Her expression hardens into resolution. This ends today, not just for her, but systemically. She returns inside, selecting a seat in the waiting area where both Richard and the entrance remain visible. She removes her tablet and begins making meticulous notes, capturing every detail while the experience remains fresh. Richard notices her continued presence with mild irritation. He assumes she's drafting a complaint that will disappear into the corporate void. He doesn't realize she's formulating a response that will reshape the entire organization. As bank employees return to their stations, Richard's phone rings with a call from regional headquarters, but he silences it without a glance, too important to be interrupted. 30 minutes pass in calculated silence. Vanessa remains seated in the waiting area, calmly working on her tablet. Her continued presence visibly unnerves Richard, who expected her to leave in defeated shame. He keeps glancing toward her, each look more irritated than the last. Teresa, a young bank employee with a nervous smile, approaches Vanessa hesitantly. "Ma'am, is there something else we can help you with today?" The rehearsed quality of her inquiry reveals Richard sent her to encourage Vanessa's departure. "Yes, actually." Vanessa smiles professionally. "I'd like to speak with whoever is responsible for your CRA compliance documentation." The request for Community Reinvestment Act paperwork, something only banking professionals typically know about, catches Teresa off guard. Her eyes widen slightly. Richard notices the exchange from across the lobby and quickly intervenes, inserting himself between Teresa and Vanessa. We don't provide that information to customers, he states firmly, dismissing Teresa with a sharp nod. Actually, Vanessa responds, Regulation BB specifically requires all banks to maintain public files of CRA performance evaluations. Section 228.43, to be precise. I'd like to review yours. Her citation of the exact regulation rattles his composure. Richard's confidence wavers visibly. The woman speaking banking regulations fluently doesn't match the profile he constructed in his mind. He recovers quickly. Those files are at our headquarters location only. That's a violation, Vanessa notes calmly. Each branch must maintain its own file for public inspection upon request. She turns her tablet toward him, displaying the FDIC website with the relevant requirement highlighted. Other customers watch with growing interest. The power dynamic shifts subtly as Richard's authority faces a challenge he can't easily dismiss. He changes tactics, his smile thinning. Our system is currently down for maintenance. Perhaps you could come back another day. The lie hangs transparently between them. I'm happy to wait, Vanessa replies, settling more comfortably in her chair. I've cleared my afternoon for this. She places her tablet on her lap, a silent statement of her intention to remain. Richard's phone buzzes again, regional headquarters calling a second time. He glances at the screen with annoyance before silencing it again. Whatever corporate wants can wait. He needs to handle this situation first. The irony of his priorities remains hidden from him as he retreats to his desk, composing an email documenting a difficult customer situation. As Richard glares at his computer screen, the door opens and a courier enters with an envelope marked Urgent Executive Division, addressed to the branch. The courier scans the lobby, approaches Jennifer's window, and presents the envelope. She carries it directly to Richard, interrupting his frustrated typing. He takes it with a puzzled frown, noting the executive division marking with mild concern. Richard tears open the envelope, finding formal documentation requesting immediate verification of all transactions denied in the past month, with customer demographic data included. The timing strikes him as suspiciously coincidental. Surely this woman couldn't have prompted an executive audit so quickly. He glances toward Vanessa, who sits calmly reviewing something on her tablet. Richard approaches her again, his demeanor artificially pleasant, customer service training overtaking genuine emotion. Ma'am, perhaps there was a misunderstanding earlier. If you'd like to speak privately in my office about your check. The offer comes with a forced smile and a gesture toward his glass-walled office. I prefer to conduct this business publicly, Vanessa replies evenly, just as my humiliation was public. Several customers nod imperceptibly in agreement. The lobby has become a silent theater, banking business temporarily suspended as the drama unfolds. Richard's phone lights up a third time, regional HQ again. Irritation flashes across his face as he answers, stepping away for privacy. Klein speaking, he begins confidently, but his expression transitions rapidly from annoyance to confusion to the first pale edges of alarm. His posture stiffens as he listens, eyes darting toward Vanessa with growing uncertainty. He returns to where she sits, visibly shaken. Ms. Johnson, it seems there may have been a misunderstanding. Our verification system has confirmed your check was indeed valid. He offers no apology, merely a procedural correction, as if a machine rather than his personal judgment made the error. And yet you destroyed it without verification, Vanessa observes, her calm unchanged. Richard attempts damage control, speaking more quietly now. I can reissue the check immediately. If you'll just come to my office. That won't be necessary, Vanessa interrupts, remaining seated. I've already spoken with your regional director about proper procedures going forward. The revelation lands like a thunderclap. Richard's mind races. How does this woman have direct access to regional directors? He begins to suspect she's more connected than he assumed, but still doesn't grasp the full situation. Outside, more corporate cars pull into reserved parking spaces. Men and women in tailored suits exit, carrying briefcases emblazoned with the bank's logo. Should we be worried? Jennifer whispers to Richard as she passes behind him. Who is she? Probably knows someone who knows someone. Richard dismisses, though his confidence has clearly eroded. It's fine. As the corporate visitors enter the bank, one immediately recognizes Vanessa. "Mrs. Johnson, we weren't expecting you today. Is everything all right with the campaign launch?" The corporate team approaches Vanessa with unmistakable deference. The marketing director, a polished woman in her 40s, leads the group directly to where Vanessa sits, bypassing Richard entirely. "Mrs. Johnson, what a surprise!" she exclaims, genuine warmth in her greeting. "We were just discussing the diversity initiative rollout. The billboard looks magnificent. Your son is perfect for the campaign." Her colleagues nod enthusiastically. "Since you spearheaded the program, we wanted to ensure the branch implementation aligns with your vision," explains a silver-haired man, clearly a senior executive by his bearing. Richard watches in growing confusion as the corporate visitors cluster around Vanessa, treating her with obvious respect and familiarity. The puzzle pieces begin connecting in his mind, but the picture forming doesn't match his comfortable assumptions. He approaches cautiously, inserting himself into the circle. "I'm Richard Klein, branch supervisor." He introduces himself with an extended hand. The executives acknowledge him with lukewarm politeness, their body language suggesting they've already heard something concerning. The marketing director turns back to Vanessa. "Mrs. Johnson, has the branch team been briefed on the new cultural competency protocols you developed? We're implementing them across all locations this quarter." Before Vanessa can answer, Richard interjects. "We implement all corporate directives thoroughly and promptly." His declaration rings hollow even to his own ears. He clearly has no idea what they're referencing. "Actually," Vanessa responds, her composure unwavering, "I've been conducting an impromptu audit of those very procedures today. The results have been illuminating." The executives exchange concerned glances. The silver-haired man checks his phone, eyes widening slightly at whatever message appears. He leans over to whisper something to his colleague. The information travels through the group like a current, transforming their expressions from pleasant to concerned. Richard attempts to regain control of the situation, professional survival instincts kicking in. "I'd be happy to show the marketing team the new billboard display area we've prepared," he offers, gesturing toward the front windows. As they move through the lobby, Richard maneuvers to walk alongside Vanessa. "I believe we got off on the wrong foot," he murmurs. "If there's been any misunderstanding about your transaction earlier—" "It wasn't a misunderstanding, Mr. Klein," Vanessa cuts him off cleanly. "It was bias. Documented, witnessed, and now being addressed at the appropriate levels." The group reaches the front windows where the billboard is clearly visible across the street. Anthony Johnson's face smiles down at them, alongside the slogan, "Building Stronger Communities Through Equality." As everyone admires the billboard, the bank's doors open again, this time admitting the regional director herself, accompanied by Human Resources and the Chief Diversity Officer. The regional director, Diane Phillips, enters with purposeful strides. Her tailored suit and commanding presence draw every eye in the lobby. Flanking her are two equally imposing figures, the head of Human Resources and the Chief Diversity Officer. Their synchronized arrival creates an atmosphere of unmistakable authority. "Mrs. Johnson," Diane approaches Vanessa directly, "I came as soon as I received your documentation." Her tone is respectful but urgent. She turns to Richard, temperature dropping noticeably in her voice. "Mr. Klein, your presence is required in the conference room immediately." Richard stares in bewilderment. "Mrs. Johnson?" he repeats, the name suddenly taking on new significance in his mind. His eyes dart between Vanessa and the executives, mental calculations visibly racing behind his expression. Vanessa rises from her seat with unhurried dignity. The room's dynamics shift instantly. She now stands at the center of power as everyone else automatically repositions around her. With calm precision, she finally introduces herself properly. "Vanessa Johnson, Executive Vice President of Community Development and Inclusion, Heartland Financial, member of the National Board of Directors." She pauses deliberately. "And mother of Anthony Johnson, whose face you've been staring at without recognition for the past hour." The revelation strikes the room like thunder. Bank employees freeze. Customers murmur. Richard's face drains of color as he grasps the magnitude of his error. The woman he humiliated isn't merely connected to power, she wields it. "The check you destroyed," Vanessa continues, her voice carrying through the now silent lobby, "was payment for a financial literacy program I personally developed and taught in underserved communities. A program funded by this bank's diversity initiative, which I oversee." The chief diversity officer steps forward, a distinguished man with silver temples and a measured voice. "Mrs. Johnson has been instrumental in reshaping our corporate culture over the past 3 years. Her Banking for All program has become an industry benchmark for financial inclusion." As he speaks, memories flash through Vanessa's mind, leading boardroom discussions where skeptical executives eventually embraced her vision. Speaking at financial inclusion conferences where banking leaders sought her guidance, shaking hands with community organizers and politicians as new programs launched in neighborhoods long ignored by financial institutions. Anthony's pride in his mother's work had led directly to his becoming the face of the campaign she created. The check Richard destroyed represented Anthony's contribution, donating his modeling fee to her nonprofit foundation dedicated to financial education. Richard stammers, desperately seeking stable ground. "There was no way to know. Your account didn't indicate." "That's precisely the point," Vanessa interrupts, her voice level but authoritative. "Banking services should never be determined by assumptions about a customer's status or appearance. The policies you violated today were designed to prevent exactly this kind of discrimination." The Human Resources Director opens a leather portfolio containing what appears to be an employee file. "Mr. Klein, we have documentation of 7 similar incidents under your supervision in the past quarter alone, all involving customers of color, all with legitimate transactions delayed or denied without proper verification." Jennifer and other tellers look down at their stations, discomfort evident in their postures. They witnessed these incidents, recognized the pattern, yet said nothing. Complicity through silence. Richard's worldview visibly collapses around him. The certainty that guided his actions, that he was protecting the bank from fraud, disintegrates as he realizes he's been enforcing his own biases under the guise of security protocols. His professional identity unravels in real time before an audience of colleagues and customers. The moment hangs suspended, power irrevocably shifted. Richard stands exposed not as the institution's protector, but as the embodiment of its deepest flaws. Vanessa's calm composure contrasts sharply with his disintegrating confidence, highlighting the difference between genuine authority and the hollow performance of it. Diane Phillips gestures toward the conference room. "Mr. Klein, we'll continue this discussion privately." 2 security officers appear discreetly near the entrance, not approaching, but clearly available if needed. As Richard is escorted away, his shoulders slumped in defeat, Vanessa surveys the silent lobby. Customers and staff alike watch her with new understanding. The woman who entered as just another customer now stands revealed as an architect of institutional change caught in the very discrimination she works to eliminate. As Richard disappears into the conference room, Vanessa turns to address the remaining bank staff. "This isn't the end of something. It's the beginning of necessary change." The aftermath unfolds across 14 days of intense corporate reckoning. Vanessa transforms an isolated incident into systemic reform through methodical, unwavering pressure. In Heartland Financial's executive boardroom, morning light streams through floor-to-ceiling windows as Vanessa stands before the assembled leadership team. Digital displays project damning data behind her, undeniable evidence gathered within 48 hours of the incident. "This isn't about punishing one individual," she explains, laser pointer highlighting troubling patterns across branches. "It's about acknowledging a systemic failure in our culture. Richard Klein is merely a symptom of our institutional blind spots." The CEO shifts uncomfortably as Vanessa advances to the next slide. "Our data analytics team uncovered these patterns overnight." The numbers tell an uncomfortable truth. Customers of color wait 42% longer for service, face triple the documentation requirements for identical transactions, and experience 5 times more transaction denials than white customers with identical financial profiles. These aren't anomalies, Vanessa continues. They're evidence of structural bias embedded in our practices. In another conference room, Heartland's legal counsel meets with compliance officers. Documents spread across the table reveal potential exposure, class action possibilities, regulatory violations, community trust erosion. A senior attorney calculates potential costs on a legal pad. The figures make him wince. The financial exposure alone justifies immediate action, he explains to the group, but the reputational damage could be incalculable. Meanwhile, Richard undergoes formal hearings with human resources and legal. Security footage from multiple dates plays on monitors, showing a clear pattern of disparate treatment. His defense crumbles as transaction records reveal customers with identical profiles receiving drastically different service based solely on appearance. "I was following security protocols," Richard insists, voice hollow as the evidence mounts. The HR director slides his personnel file across the table. 3 previous complaints were filed but never addressed. Each one documented similar behavior. Richard stares at the file, seeing his career's trajectory redirected in real time. "I thought I was protecting the bank," he whispers, the justification sounding weak even to his own ears. In her executive office, Vanessa works through nights developing comprehensive reforms. Her assistant brings meals she barely touches as she crafts new systems designed to eliminate, not merely reduce, discriminatory practices. Blind transaction reviews where customer demographics are hidden during approval processes. Mandatory bias. Training with measurable outcomes and real consequences. Community accountability. Boards with representatives from diverse neighborhoods. Mystery shopper programs with standardized transaction requests across demographic groups. Promotion and compensation structures tied directly to equitable customer service metrics. When she presents these measures to the board, initial resistance surfaces immediately. The implementation costs for these programs would impact quarterly earnings, the CFO objects. Vanessa responds with another set of projections. These figures represent discrimination's actual cost: lost customers, regulatory fines, litigation expenses, and reputation damage. Inclusion isn't just morally right, it's financially sound. Her evidence proves irrefutable. Each objection meets factual counterarguments until resistance transforms into reluctant acknowledgement, then active support. Jennifer and other tellers from the branch come forward with additional accounts of discriminatory practices they observed but felt powerless to address. Their testimonies inform the creation of a new whistleblower protection program. "We saw it happening," Jennifer admits during a staff focus group, "but who could we tell? He was the supervisor." This revelation leads to structural changes in reporting hierarchies, creating multiple channels for raising ethical concerns, without fear of retaliation. Throughout this period, Richard undergoes his own transformation. Initially defensive, he cycles through predictable stages. Denial, "I treated everyone equally." Anger, "I'm being scapegoated." Bargaining, "I'll take additional training." And finally, uncomfortable recognition. In a pivotal session, he reviews video compilations of his own interactions with customers of different backgrounds. The patterns become undeniable even to him. Side-by-side comparisons show stark differences in his body language, questioning patterns, and approval thresholds based solely on the customer's appearance. "I didn't see it," he admits finally, voice barely audible. "I genuinely thought I was protecting the bank." The psychologist facilitating the session nods. Bias operates most powerfully when we're unaware of it. The question now is, what will you do with this awareness? Anthony Johnson joins a strategy meeting, not as a celebrity endorser, but as the son who watched his accomplished mother be humiliated despite her position. He sits beside Vanessa as marketing executives present revised campaign materials. "The billboard campaign means nothing if it doesn't reflect real change inside these walls," Anthony states firmly. My face isn't a shield against examining actual practices. His perspective reshapes the marketing approach, shifting from representation-focused imaging to accountability-centered messaging that highlights specific policy changes and measurable outcomes. Vanessa works 18-hour days, transforming an ugly incident into institutional evolution. She meets with community leaders, regulators, industry peers, and internal teams, building coalitions to support changes that will outlast any single champion. In the branch where the incident occurred, transformation begins immediately. New protocols require documentation of all transaction decisions. Service times are monitored across demographic groups. Regular bias checks become standard practice. Employees receive additional training on recognizing and interrupting discriminatory patterns. 10 days after the incident, the board votes on Vanessa's comprehensive reform package. The measures pass unanimously, not from goodwill alone, but because the business case proves undeniable. Discrimination is expensive. Inclusion builds market share. This is just the beginning, Vanessa reminds them as the vote concludes. Real change requires sustained commitment, not a single policy adjustment. As she gathers her materials after the board meeting, Vanessa's phone rings with a call from a number she doesn't recognize. The woman on the line introduces herself as the chair of a national banking regulatory commission. "Mrs. Johnson, we've been following your internal reforms with great interest," she explains. "Similar incidents at other major institutions have recently come to light. We're forming a task force to develop industry-wide standards. Would you be willing to share your approach?" The regional impact of one incident begins expanding into national influence, a single humiliation transforming into industry-wide reformation. Vanessa accepts the invitation without hesitation, recognizing the opportunity to create change beyond her own institution. Richard, meanwhile, faces the consequences of actions now visible to him in their full context. His career trajectory permanently altered. He confronts questions about his future in an industry where his reputation now precedes him. The confidence that once bordered on arrogance has been replaced by uncomfortable self-awareness. In her final presentation to the executive committee, Vanessa shares metrics from the first week of implemented changes. Early results show promising shifts in service patterns, though she cautions against premature celebration. Cultural change isn't accomplished through a single incident or policy, she reminds them. It requires ongoing vigilance, measurement, and accountability at every level. The CEO, initially hesitant about the scope of reforms, now champions them publicly. "This isn't just about making things right after one incident," he tells industry reporters. "It's about building banking systems that work equitably for everyone, which ultimately expands our market and strengthens our business." As the second week concludes, Vanessa receives the formal investigation report on her desk. The findings validate every concern while recommending additional areas for improvement. She signs the authorization for the next phase of reforms, satisfaction evident in her deliberate signature. As news spreads of Heartland Financial's sweeping anti-discrimination reforms, executives from competing banks begin calling Vanessa, asking the question she's been waiting for. How can we avoid becoming the next cautionary tale? Richard sits rigidly before the disciplinary panel, hands clasped on the polished conference table to hide their slight tremor. The room feels airless despite its spacious design. Documents chronicling his actions spread before 5 stern-faced executives who will determine his professional fate. 2 weeks of reflection have transformed Richard's demeanor. The defensiveness that initially dominated his responses has given way to something more complex, an uncomfortable recognition of patterns he never acknowledged before today. Looking back at the records, the head of HR states, her voice neutral but firm, "We found 17 documented cases where your decisions adversely affected customers of color. Each case individually might be explained away as procedural caution, but collectively they form an undeniable pattern of disparate treatment." Richard stares at the evidence assembled against him. Transaction records, security footage, customer complaints, and comparative data showing his dramatically different handling of similar situations based solely on customer demographics. I never thought of myself as that kind of person, Richard admits, his voice subdued. The phrase sounds hollow even to him, an inadequate response to the documented reality before him. Vanessa enters quietly, taking a seat not with the executives but at a separate table. Her presence isn't vindictive but purposeful. She attends not as an accuser but as an advocate for broader change, her focus extending beyond Richard's individual actions to the system that enabled them. The question before us, she observes, isn't whether Mr. Klein believed he was following procedures, but why our procedures allowed for such consistent, disparate treatment without triggering internal safeguards. The panel reviews the options methodically. Termination seems inevitable given the severity and pattern of violations. Richard has already been removed from customer-facing roles pending the hearing's outcome. His personnel file now includes detailed documentation of the incidents, effectively ending his banking career regardless of today's decision. Then, Vanessa surprises everyone. Firing Mr. Klein might satisfy an immediate desire for consequences, she states, but it does nothing to address the culture that enabled his behavior. Her proposal cuts against conventional wisdom. I suggest an alternative path forward. Mr. Klein can either accept termination, or he can participate in developing and implementing our new anti-discrimination training program, sharing his experience as a case study in how implicit bias operates in financial services. The room falls silent as she continues. Real change requires those who've perpetuated harmful systems to participate in dismantling them. Mr. Klein's perspective, particularly his journey from unawareness to recognition, could prove valuable in helping others identify their own blind spots. Richard looks up, genuine surprise breaking through his carefully maintained composure. Why would you give me that chance after what I did to you? Vanessa meets his gaze directly. This was never about you and me, Mr. Klein. It's about creating banking systems that work equitably for everyone. Your experience can either disappear with your termination, or it can contribute to meaningful reform. The panel deliberates, while Richard confronts the full impact of his actions, not just on Vanessa, but on countless customers whose financial lives he affected through biased decisions he never recognized as such. The weight of this recognition sits visibly on his shoulders, transforming his posture and expression. The verdict arrives with formal precision. Richard is placed on probation, permanently removed from supervisory roles, and assigned to work directly with the diversity team on training development. His continued employment remains contingent on his full acknowledgement of wrongdoing and demonstrated commitment to the reform process. This isn't leniency, the HR director clarifies. It's purposeful accountability. Your experiences will serve as a teaching tool, and your progress will be continuously evaluated against measurable criteria. As the hearing concludes, Richard faces Vanessa. The power dynamic between them has permanently shifted, but something else has changed too. His perception has expanded to finally see her as she truly is, not as his biases had constructed her. I have a lot to learn, he acknowledges, the simple statement more genuine than any elaborate apology. Yes, Vanessa agrees simply. We all do. That's precisely the point. As Richard leaves the hearing, he passes the bank's lobby where workers are installing a new sign. Banking Equity Initiative Headquarters, directed by Executive VP Vanessa Johnson. 6 months transform Heartland Financial's isolated incident into an industry movement. The ripple effects of Vanessa's response reshape not just one bank, but banking culture itself. Morning news programs feature segments on financial discrimination. The Heartland Model, they call it, a framework for identifying and addressing systemic bias in customer service. Vanessa appears on financial shows, articulating the business case for inclusion with undeniable precision. The data is clear, she explains to a panel of industry leaders. Equitable banking practices don't just benefit customers, they strengthen institutions. Our customer retention has increased 17% since implementing these reforms. Statistical results from the first quarter under new protocols show measurable improvements. Service times have equalized across demographic groups. Loan approval rates now reflect consistent criteria application rather than implicit bias, and customer satisfaction scores have improved across all branches, particularly from previously underserved communities. Banking competitors initially watched Heartland's transformation with skeptical distance. Now they send representatives to learn about implementation strategies as the competitive advantages become undeniable. The Banking Equity Initiative, born from a single torn check, has expanded beyond Heartland to become an industry consortium, with Vanessa leading interbank collaboration on best practices. Richard, still with the company but in his radically altered role, leads a training session for branch managers. His transformation is visible, humbled but purposeful, using his own story as a teaching tool. The very transparency of his journey makes his message uniquely effective. "I believed I was following security protocols," he tells the assembled managers, when in fact, I was enforcing my own unexamined biases. The most dangerous discrimination isn't always hostile, it's the kind that disguises itself as prudent judgment. Participants listen with uncomfortable recognition. Richard's experience mirrors their own unexamined practices too closely to dismiss. Banking regulators take notice of Heartland's voluntary reforms. Elements of Vanessa's equity metrics begin appearing in compliance standards across multiple agencies. Financial inclusion advocates who once protested bank practices now partner on community investment projects, their expertise helping shape programs rather than merely criticizing their absence. Anthony's billboard campaign evolves from simple representation to highlighting specific policy changes and community investments, substance behind the symbolism. His image now appears alongside metrics showing increased loans to underserved entrepreneurs, expanded financial education programs, and streamlined banking access. Jennifer, once a silent witness to discrimination, now manages her own branch with vigilance against the patterns she once felt powerless to address. "We don't just train people to recognize bias," she explains to her staff. "We build systems that prevent it from affecting customer outcomes." The most profound transformation appears in the numbers. Audit reports show service quality equalizing across demographic groups. The artificial barriers that once limited financial access have begun dissolving, replaced by consistent standards applied regardless of appearance or background. Vanessa receives an invitation to deliver the keynote address at the National Banking Conference, an honor traditionally reserved for federal regulators or multinational CEOs. Her approach to transforming prejudice into progress has become a case study taught in business schools nationwide. As Vanessa prepares her keynote speech, she receives an unexpected message. Richard has requested to introduce her address, claiming no one can better explain why her reforms matter. 1 year transforms the downtown branch beyond recognition. Vanessa enters through the same revolving door where her journey began, noting the subtle but significant changes immediately apparent. The space feels different, more welcoming, more transparent. Digital displays show real-time service metrics by demographic groups, publicly tracking the branch's commitment to equal treatment. Customers move through the space with greater ease, the previous invisible hierarchies of service dissolved through intentional redesign. Richard works at a desk near the Community Resource Center, not as a supervisor, but as a community banking advocate helping first-time homebuyers navigate financial systems. He greets Vanessa with genuine respect, their relationship now professional and purposeful, though the power dynamic has permanently shifted. "Our community loan program reached its target last week," he informs her, tablet displaying the metrics. 37 new small businesses funded, majority in underserved neighborhoods. Vanessa nods approvingly. "And the customer service metrics?" "Completely equalized across demographics," Richard confirms. "Wait times, approval rates, satisfaction scores, all showing consistent treatment regardless of customer background." He displays the quarterly report with evident satisfaction in the progress, though humility has replaced his former certainty. They walk through this branch together, observing the transformation in action. Customers of all backgrounds receive attentive service without the subtle coding of importance that once determined treatment quality. The tellers and loan officers reflect greater diversity themselves, recruitment efforts having expanded the staff composition to better mirror the community served. A prominent display near the entrance shows the branch's community commitments and performance metrics, transparency that ensures accountability. Photos document financial literacy workshops in diverse neighborhoods, small business mentoring programs, and community development initiatives. Anthony visits during Vanessa's inspection, now pursuing an MBA focused on economic equity. The star athlete turned student greets staff members warmly, many the same people who once witnessed his mother's humiliation, now partners in meaningful change. "Your case study is required reading in my program," Anthony tells Richard without rancor. "Professor uses it to demonstrate how systems improve when they acknowledge failures instead of defending them." Richard nods, accepting this assessment without defensiveness. "The most valuable education of my life was learning to see what was right in front of me all along." Vanessa gathers the branch staff for a brief meeting before departing. New employees mix with veterans, all now operating under systems designed to promote equity rather than merely assuming it. "The measure of progress isn't what happens in a moment of injustice," she tells them. "It's what systems we build in response to ensure that injustice isn't repeated. A year ago, this branch showed us our weaknesses. Today, it demonstrates our capacity for growth." Richard, standing among his colleagues rather than above them, offers his own reflection. "I used to think equity meant treating everyone the same," he acknowledges. "Now I understand it means ensuring everyone has what they need to succeed financially, which sometimes requires different approaches for different communities." The afternoon concludes with Vanessa completing a simple transaction, depositing another grant check for her financial literacy foundation. The process proceeds smoothly, professionally, without drama or special treatment, banking as it should be for everyone. As she leaves, Vanessa pauses to watch the ordinary business of the branch continuing behind her. Customers enter with confidence rather than apprehension. Staff assist without prejudgment. The mundane normality of it represents the most profound success, equal treatment so consistent it becomes unremarkable. This, she realizes, is the true victory. Not the dramatic confrontation or public accountability, but the quiet transformation of daily practice. Change embedded so deeply it becomes the natural order rather than a special effort. If you've been moved by Vanessa's journey from humiliation to transformation, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that subscribe button now to join our community of justice seekers and story lovers. Turn on notifications so you never miss our weekly episodes of empowerment and accountability. Remember, your subscription isn't just a click, it's a statement that these stories matter. Beat Stories, where justice gets the last word. Subscribe now.
Behind every headline is a human story. At Beat Stories, we go deeper, where emotion meets evidence and drama reveals the system. If this story made you pause, reflect, or feel something, don't forget to subscribe. There's more to come.